Good morning, as it is in the Philippines. So I thought I would just kind of share in the format of what did I do on my summer vacation kind of thing, show and tell with pictures. So we flew all day. It's a 24-hour ordeal to get over there. And I'm not showing you the first picture that I took. In fact, by the way, how many of you watched us on Facebook, followed us on Facebook? Okay, a good many, that's great. So you will know that the first picture I took was a welcome sign at the foot of the escalator in the airport, which I thought, cool, welcome to the Philippines, we'll post that right up. Little did I know, it was welcome to the casino, and it had cocktails and dice. And so it wasn't a great start for our ministry trip as we're advertising all that we're doing over there. But this is the next picture that I took. It was a picture of our hotel. Pastor thanked Stephen and myself for coming, because when John Conrad takes just pastor, they usually don't stay in something this nice, right? He's the cheapskate that he is. And so this was the hotel. And the first thing we did when we got there was we had a meeting. Because after all, it was only about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, even though we hadn't slept. So there we all are, checking in. My sister saw this picture, and she said, you can tell who the engineer is in the crowd by the pocket full of pins, right? A whole bunch of missionary people and one engineer. So this is what we did right down in the lobby. We met with Pastor Lido and Pastor Marlon and Pastor Biliones and started planning out what we're going to do. And we found out that we're going to be doing a worship service the very next evening. I don't think we had that on the original agenda, but they were brain scheming some things for us to do. So we did that. And so that next night, this is the sound room at, what's the name of this church? Covenant Baptist Church. You can see the building is just kind of concrete walls, a single room, up a little mud path that you get up to the top of this hill where this building is. And there's Stephen working with the sound guys, trying to get everything working. And Pastor preached a glorious sermon there. They had some curtains on the back of that wall to make it look nice, and some PowerPoint projection to be able to handle that. So this is kind of summary of it. It went on for almost 2 hours with us singing some songs and them singing some songs and an altar call that just kept going. But one of the things that really made it keep going was, and this was a tradition I'd like to start here in our church tonight. After every worship service we were attending, everyone, they said, hey, it's photograph time. So everybody came up and took all kinds of photographs of each one with them. Little kids came up, mom and dad, and just lots and lots of photographs. And this was after about 30 minutes of photographs. We said, hey, why don't we get everybody together? So that was the whole crowd that was there 30 minutes after the service doing that. So tonight, Nate, you and Carol, would you stand up? And Bonnie, go ahead, stand up. And Bonnie and your wife, Carmela, would you stand up? Scott Saxon, Lorraine, would you stand up? Okay, you guys down here after the service, and anybody that's got a smartphone, come down here and get your picture taken with them, okay? We're going to make Bonnie feel at home, because that's what they do. Then we had this really impoverished meal. It was just soupy water and potatoes. This is a Filipino type basic food. Actually, the restaurant's called Four Seasons, and it was an amazing meal. But the thing I want to point out is that Pastor brought his magic tricks, and everywhere we went, he was taking these ropes and cutting them into 3 and having them fooling everybody and sharing the gospel with them as he did it. And so there he is with Sunshine, our waitress that day, who served us that meal. Then we went up to Tagaytay, and that's where you saw the graduation and the conference that we taught. So that was when we first arrived there. This was the banner that was posted up there. One of my favorite things was they had a list of all the speakers. Dr. Lou Scholes and company. So we are the and company. I guess there wasn't quite enough room down there in the corner. But I taught a lot of seminars. Jason taught on making a melody. In fact, he preached that same sermon when he came back on a Sunday night. And I taught on biblical counseling and financial principles. And one of the blessings for me was the opportunity to learn a new seminar to teach, which I reached out to my friends at Crown Financial Ministries and Compass and put together a sermon on the financing of a church planter in his personal finances, in teaching new members that are coming to a church plant. and how to run the finances and raise funds for church planting. So that was a fun thing to put together. Had a good crowd there for that. They asked a lot of questions, a lot of good interaction on that. This was at the graduation. Again, I want to show you they're advertising everywhere. The I Stand Redeemed concert coming up the following Tuesday was there. And a lot of the esteemed guests, the graduates with the degrees that were going to be conferring upon the graduates that were getting their degrees that night. You saw some of this in the video. There, again, more pictures of everybody after it's over, crowding around and getting pictures with the crazy Americans. This is Roger Biliones and his son, and they meant a lot to me. They came up after my first seminar and said, we would like you to come speak to the church mission that we have for the lepers. So they have a leper colony that is, it's not a leper colony for those that have leprosy, but it's for those that have been cured of leprosy, because there's still a lot of stigma because many of them have missing ears and missing limbs and fingers and toes and those kinds of things, noses. And so they struggle to fit back into society. And so they meet with them, and I had the opportunity later to go preach at their church, which was very moving to me. But there's some more photographs at the end of all the craziness going on after the graduation took place. These three guys, you saw them in the trio. They were called the Men of Psalms. And they had quite a repertoire of songs that they sang at various places. And Jason and Matt and I invited them to join us in one of our trios, and that's the one you saw the little clip of. I think, this one where we were rehearsing for the very first time. These guys had never sung this before. You see them all holding their smartphones? We didn't have copies of the words. We had one copy of the words. They took pictures of them and then were looking at them on their phones in order to practice. And that singing that you heard was them doing it for the first time after hearing us perform it a couple of times. So they were very gifted, at least by ear, musicians. And then, of course, Stephen, we handed him the video camera and said, just be creative. Little did we know he was going to lie down on his back. And so as soon as he did it, we all just, without practicing, just jumped over him and started singing into the camera. So that was a lot of fun. Then this is that Sunday. We got the opportunity to preach to the lepers there. You can see them in the room. Not a lot of them come. The colony itself probably holds 500 former lepers. But they get a couple dozen of them at a time that are coming and willing to worship with them and learn. And that's the front door, and that's the Pastor Biliones' son, who's waving goodbye and thanking us for being there. I think I was the only one that got to ride in a jeepney on this trip. Pastor Biliones took me back to the hotel, and everybody else ended up with plans all day. So Roger and I were alone to do lunch on our own. He didn't have wheels. We had ridden a taxi cab back there. But we found out it was, 8 pesos, which is about 6 cents or 4 cents, something like that, to ride the jeepney all the way to the Mall of Asia. And as we're walking up to the jeepney, he said, they're going to wonder if Goliath is coming because there's all these small, short people. By the way, when I bought this, I'm typically an extra large. And when I bought this barong that I'm wearing today, in Philippine size, I am 3X because... Anyway, so I crawled in there and managed to take a selfie. You can see me all bent over because it's only about 3 feet high that you have to crawl in there and sit. But we rode that all the way to, ate at Tokyo restaurant in the Mall of Asia. And you know how you get free refills on your drinks here? They do not do that there. But there's a guy running around saying, more rice? So all the rice you want, because the refills on rice were free. When we got back to Chicago O'Hare, we said, take us to anything that doesn't have rice or noodles in it, because we've had a lot of that on this trip. This is another church that I got to speak at just prior to the other church, and again, lots of photographs. So we're going to do that here tonight, right, with all of our guest missionaries. Now, this is one of those pictures, you try real hard to take good pictures of a sunset. Well, we're driving away from the Mall of Asia, and one of the guys in front, he says, wow, look at that sunset. And Stephen, get a picture, because he's our official photographer, and he's booting up his camera trying to get it going. And I already had one up, and I just leaned across, I wasn't even on the right side of the car, and took this picture out the window, and it turned out amazingly beautiful. So I had to throw that in here, just because sometimes you swerve into having some beauty in these photographs. This is a look at what we saw from the stage for the Rizal Park Conference. So it's right downtown in Manila. You can see the skyline out there. It's the canopy that covers it all. There's benches that are set up. The sound guy, this was an amazing sound guy too, by the way. He turned out to be Lito's Sunday school buddy from when they were like 5 years old. And he is now the premier audiovisual businessman in Manila, Philippines. When Hall & Oates come in to do a concert, he's the guy that sets up their sound. And we were lucky enough, blessed enough to be able to have him do that. That's how you saw all the fog that covered up Pastor Jason when he was playing the saxophone. And he brought in fog machines. He hung his own lights. These guys crawled up there with ladders and sky hooks and hung their own lights because they didn't like the cheap lights that they had there. And I'm sure we were using like his third string lights for it, but it was amazingly professional. So you saw a lot of these pictures of the various people performing at the concert. There's our trio doing Lazarus. Now, one thing I want you to notice about this is the two trios together. What do you notice about what we're wearing? All the Americans are in barongs, and the Filipinos are in suits and ties, coats and ties. It's like we want to be like them, they want to be like us. That's just the way it is. So there's Pastor Jason. When I wasn't singing, I would sneak around the back and open up a little piece of the bamboo thing and take some pictures of from backstage so you can kind of see what we were seeing out there in the audience. And this was, I'm going to spare you the details of the balut story. How many of you saw it on our Facebook page? Okay, good. But these are the kids that pressured 3 out of the 6 of us. Actually, they pressured all 6 of us, but 3 of us succumbed to doing the balut thing, but I'm not going to show any pictures of that, so you're okay. But here's some other exotic foods that we saw at various places. Matt and Stephen and I wandered around one of these malls and just found unusual things that we couldn't find here, and had a little smorgasbord of various things that we ate. Then we got a chance to go out to Corregidor, the island that was attacked immediately after Pearl Harbor that started World War II. And boy, I can really see why the Filipinos love the Americans so much. The monuments that they set up at these places, the respect they have for General MacArthur, who was the governor of the island at the time when it was attacked, because the Philippines were a territory of the U.S. at the time, and that's why Japan attacked them. And they just honor so much the things that we do. This statue in the upper right-hand corner is 2 soldiers, one Filipino, one American. And there's one just like it in Washington, D.C. And in the Philippines, it is an American soldier helping a Filipino who's injured. And in the United States, it's a Filipino soldier who's helping an injured American soldier. So they've made them just alike but complementary. But a neat day to spend that. And then we hopped on our plane and we flew over the polar cap to come back. And just to give you an idea of how long it was, we called our wives. And turns out the wives had all gotten together at our house and were having dinner on Thursday night when we left. And then when we got in Chicago, they were having dinner on Friday night, still waiting for us to come home. And then we finally got home about 1 in the morning, and that was it. So, but I do have a question for you that I'll close with, and that is this. I bought T-shirts for my family, but forgot to buy one for myself. So Susan went and found a Got Balut T-shirt. And with that, we'll bring things to a close.
Well, there's no doubt about it. We did have a good time. And you're allowed to do that when you're serving the Lord, right? We had a wonderful time. And with the remainder of our minutes together, we're going to give you some of the strategic reasons that we were there and attempt to answer some of the questions about why did you go and what do you believe was important about the trip and what was accomplished. And so we'll fill in some of those blanks as well. And hopefully that will give you a better understanding of how I believe the Lord used this church in a marvelous way.